Welcome to the Sports Khabari podcast. I'm your host Yashodhan, and today we are going to be talking about the biggest sporting event of 2023, the FIFA Women's World Cup being held down under in Australia and New Zealand. The tournament's been stellar so far with sold out crowds, amazing goals, a lot of upsets, and surprising results. So, with me here today are two very big fans of the sport and the tournament, Shaggy from Bangalore and Roshan, who's right now in Germany. So, Roshan, first of all, tell us about your experience about the tournament. How's it been there, and how are the Germans dealing with the early exit?
Yeah, it's very. I have the luck that the World Cup is streamed in public TV in Germany, not only on the TV, also in the online platform. So every match we can watch with in real life, and we can watch it with German commentary, and it's very good. You get a lot of insights. There's also a lot of German podcasts covering the World Cup, and yeah, it's very. I feel about the exit. Yeah, it has some similarities to the men's side. The mood was actually that the team will go through the group stage and or even win it. But yeah, I remember I saw the Vietnam test match in advance of the World Cup live here in Germany, and that was with the second squad, not the first grade squad, with the second grade squad, and that was also a bit yeah, it was also a bit showed some signs that the team has a problem, at least on the bench, and that somehow backfired the team also. And yeah, but I was also hearing today Martina Tecklenburg, Voss Tecklenburg wants to continue as a coach, and yeah, it's a bit shocking, yeah, but yeah. The discussions I heard about it, it's not like there's a big surprise in the sense of it's not. It's somehow it's deserved. People understand it was two out of three matches they were not good performed by the team. That was too calculated. That was too easy to understand the gameplay. So yeah.
And Shaggy, what about you? I mean, you've been quite active on Twitter. I was just going through your tweets, and you've been updating all of us with the matches, with the results. So, how's the World Cup been for you so far?
Yeah, so for me, I was looking at it from two perspectives. One is quantity as well as quality. This is the first World Cup that has on par with men's in terms of team sizes. So we have 32. The team sizes are 32 divided into eight groups, which is which is similar to the men's format. And then obviously in terms of quality, because from the past World Cup, what has changed that we need to have a check. And this World Cup is a path breaker in both the terms. When we had the issues where people were talking about quality because we had increased the number of teams from the last World Cup, we heard a lot of people saying, "Hey, it's not going to be that good. You have so many teams have will be like um, taken apart by the big teams." And surprisingly, not surprisingly, that's not happened. What has happened is completely taken everyone by surprise with the big upsets that are happening. Unfortunately, Germany, which I rated very highly before the World Cup, um, was again one of the victims of this kind of, how do I say, rating system. But the rating systems have gone for a toss this World Cup, which is very good to see because some of the stories behind these teams is quite extraordinary. In terms of quality, there has always been a question about how we rate the quality of teams, right? We always talk in quality in terms of which leagues we play. Like if you're playing in European leagues, it's a higher quality. Asian leagues don't stand that high quality, or people playing not in European leagues or American leagues don't do well. but you look at the stories across, the quality isn't there isn't a gap about quality. It's more of like which team has worked hard to put a good team in front in the World Cup is dictating the World Cup. There's and examples of Philippines, examples of South Africa, example of you take Jamaica, the biggest one, um, uh, and the early exits of top European teams is something which is denoting a direction where the quality has gone. So up till now, post the group stage and the first um, round of 16 knockout matches, one can clearly see that how the World Cup is faring in terms of both quantity and quality. It's been a spectacle, to be honest, and I would suggest nobody misses it who is watching over this podcast after this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember the last World Cup, and I think it was the USA versus Thailand game,
Yeah.
if I'm not wrong. And there were so many people talking about that, saying a match like this doesn't deserve to be in the World Cup. But people spoke about 32 teams. We're going to see so many other results. But just like you mentioned, it's been neck to neck. The smaller nations have, actually come out and performed pretty well. And you mentioned Jamaica, the big one. And to be in a group with France and Brazil and not concede a goal, I mean, that is simply wow from them. So let's just start off with the eight groups first of all, and then go through break each group one by one before we move on to the round of
Can
16. Yes,
can I?
Yash.
I just wanted to add something to what Shaggy said because I was checking the. I was hearing the South Korean coach Colin Bell. He was. He wanted to. He gave some criticism for the Korean league that would be not so professional. The Korean women's league would be not so professional. Um, and I was checking the South African player Hilda Magaya. She's playing in South Korea. No? So I just wanted to add what you said about playing in the right league, or it's not about it's not in generally about the league. It's about the personality and player.
So,
Uh, and just as an example to prove that point.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to our group stage analysis. First of all, the eight groups. Quite interesting matchups there. Some with France and Brazil, of course, which we mentioned in the same group. Then we had Sweden, Italy, Argentina in the same group. But of course, South Africa going through. So starting off with Group A, we had Switzerland, Norway, hosts New Zealand, and Philippines. So big stories from that group. Philippines, of course, making their debut. Last year, they had come to India and they qualified for the World Cup via the AFC Asian Cup. And New Zealand, of course, winning their first ever match at the World Cup, men's or women's both. So, what was your takeaway from this group and their first win, which happened on day one against a team like Norway, who have been underwhelming for a while?
You can start checking.
Yeah, Shaggy.
So, yeah, so see, when we look at Norway, right? Norway, if you look at go back a little bit in the Euros also, right? Norway underperformed. Okay, it's been underperforming for a while. And the Swiss were probably one of the very few good defensive units. Um, I think the New Zealanders were backed by their host, being the host. They were on their tails were up anyways. So I think Norway, New Zealand for me, looking at Norway's form, wasn't much surprising because I had seen the Euros and I saw like there was a very high dependency on clutch players. Okay, if they didn't perform, Norway wouldn't perform. Okay, and it just came down to which team gets the first goal, then the second team would have evaporated, and I think that's where it went. And the Swiss, I feel they rode on a very stable formation. Like they played a 4-3-2 throughout this. Like all the four games, they played the same formation in and out, and they had only one player which was changed in one match. Rest all of the formation that they started were pretty much the same. So I think the Swiss played to their strengths, but they in the last match, right against Spain's, that's where I think they lacked that creativity when they came against an opposition which was very creative, right? That's where I would stop right now. But for Group A, when I was watching that, I felt the Swiss did really good job of, and they were in one of the few teams which had two draws and a win to go through. So it wasn't like this group was super convincing or it was super tight. It was just that they just didn't have enough goals to how do I say, create that kind of tension between each other. So defense, it was more like whichever was the best defensive unit out of them just went through.
Yeah. And moving on to Group B, we had Australia, Nigeria, Canada, and Ireland. And Roshan, I would like to get your view on this. We had Canada, the Olympic champions, going out to Nigeria. And of course, we know that some of Nigeria's players do play in the high profile leagues in England and Spain. Oshoala, who plays for Barcelona, is a two-time UWCL champion. But tell us a bit more about that result. Did you see that coming, uh, especially with, Canada not being that consistent with their results post the Olympics?
My what I'm not sure about this. I don't. I mean, Shaggy was saying this, also mentioning this, that many teams had the stories, the stories which what they are going through, which they're struggling. I don't know if there are teams which had this in their mind, and if how much they could shake off. Canada also had some issues with the federation, and I don't know if they could shake it off. I mean, it's they were quite underperforming, Canada. I mean, you mentioned Oshoala. I remember against Australia, she was just subbed in. She was not even starting that match, and they were winning that match. Um, Nigeria, I mean, that's the first World Cup I'm seeing after a while, to be honest, from the consistency. Nigeria was always a bit stronger, in my opinion, in the women's section than in the men's section. So it was not that surprising, but it was more surprise. The most surprising for me was that Australia was so depending on Sam Kerr. That that her that she was not present in the matches. That she was in the first two matches, that they were not so that not really convincing. Against Ireland, they won the match and didn't. They just won the match, and against Nigeria, they had issues. That was the bigger surprise for me, that they couldn't utilize the home crowd. The quality in the Australian team is, in my opinion, there, but they couldn't utilize it. And yeah, Canada, throughout the tournament, they were not very convincing. This match against Nigeria, I mean, they also had bad luck. Forgot the name of the Nigerian goalkeeper. She had also the day of her life, maybe.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that was yeah, it was more upsetting for me how Australia was performing. That they had to get the match against Canada to get through the next round. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's disappointing that Canada was yeah, they were not performing up to the mark.
yeah,
Yeah,
Shaggy.
just to add to this, if you look at this group, right, this group was one of the, doesn't look like by the scoreline, but it was a very tough group. We
Yeah.
are forgetting what Republic of Ireland did. I mean, they are again one of the stories which are really like, which is you should come into forefront, especially Kate McCabe, and how she was, because she scored the first goal for Republic of Ireland, which was an Olympic goal. I mean, I saw that goal and it was like crazy to see a first time country scoring goal, and that also a Olympic goal. But they were a very competitive unit, given that they had faced, like what Roshan said, issues, right? Like the Canadian Federation. There are a lot of these issues that have come into picture, and even neither Australia, as Roshan rightly pointed, were not convincing. The Nigerians versus Australia match was a probably a legendary match. The way that match went, the last minute, the whole celebrations and everything. So I think that was a quite a group actually to watch. So my view was that this also got decided on the end day, last day. So
Yeah,
it was always a very tough affair over there. So I think this group was really very close. And obviously Sam Kerr not being there has in some way dented it, but somehow um, they had those players to deliver them the results at the right time. So I think this is more like what group stages can be, like the up and down of the group stages, who scores first, how they concede, how the defenses are still being shaped up. But for me, I would rather say that Canada with the likes of Sinclair and everything, because those are the Sinclair is another legend who's going out with Martha. Like she's 40, she's
Mhm.
played so much, she's done so much for Canadian football. So much respect to her. But she also found it like it's a transition age where you see the younger players now starting to take over the reins of women football. Probably this group was more, and probably Martha's Brazil's group was another where you could see the transition very clearly between how the younger players were starting to perform.
definitely. And moving to talking about younger players, we saw a rejuvenated Japan who nobody was talking about initially. I mean, would you say that they were the dark horses in Group C, considering the way they demolished a team like Spain? Of course, we know Spain has had its issues with a lot of players backing out before the World Cup and a lot of drama surrounding the federation. But did you see that result coming, or that thumping which we saw from Japan? And of course, today they won their round of 16 game as well against Norway 2-1, which takes them back to the quarterfinals. So something on that fixture in Group C, Japan versus Spain. Maybe Roshan, you can share your thoughts on that.
Um, I didn't expect Japan to win. To be honest, I mean they had 5 shots and scored 4 goals. I mean, that was
Yeah,
almost every shot was inside. I mean, the German commentary today at the Spain match was speculating like, yeah, maybe Spain didn't take the Japan match too easy to get Switzerland to avoid Norway. Um, yeah, that's speculating. No, I didn't see that coming. I thought it will be a tight match. I didn't expect Spain automatically to win, but I thought it's a tight group final match for the first spot. So that was definitely surprising for me. And the first, I mean, many people are saying Japan is the favorite. I understand it because they didn't play the same way like they played against Zambia and Costa Rica. They played it in a different way, more with counter attacks, and it was also very convincing. But even today against Norway, I don't know, feel there has to be a team coming which is giving them really a tough time, in my opinion. That I'm convinced, okay, that's a World Cup winning team. That's why, because they were the all the counterparts. They were always either lacking the quality or they couldn't perform at that level. That Japan had a hard time. Maybe that's my conservative view on cup competitions, that the winner has to have minimum 1 or 2 tough games. But I guess that is still yet to come for me, I guess. But nevertheless, they're showing, like many teams in this World Cup, that they don't need one individual player who bails them out. They have Endo, they have this whole midfield: Endo, Hasegawa, Nagano, and Shimizu, and then Miyazawa in the attacking front with Tanaka. That is, they're playing, and what's the name? The center back from who played at Bayern Munich. That is from the unit, just a squad which is very impressive, right? For me, in general, it shouldn't take away anything. They can balance the quality from the defense to the attack. So there's no single player who needs to bail them out, and that's for me the general view on this World Cup. One single player cannot shine out. They have to play as a unit.
That's
So
very true.
maybe, yeah, maybe to echo what Roshan said, right? There is rarely where you see individual excelling as well as the team excelling together, right? And Japan is adding that flavor where the individual players are excelling in their individual positions as well as the team is excelling overall. Like there is no player that it's playing like a unit, like a well drilled, well oiled unit. And you should mention, I think the one person we should mention is Aoba Fuchino, who is 19-year-olds, and she is one lively
Mm.
star that's going to happen. She is another one of the 19-year-olds who's lighting up this World Cup. So, they play a 3-4-3 and they play exactly like, you know, just the way they play it's so difficult. We don't know, like, it's the transition from defense to attack is so spectacular to watch. Just a piece like you just have to switch off. You think that they are very light. Somebody, just one of my people I follow on Twitter, right, wrote a very nice eulogy on them, saying that hey, it looks all easy, and when they hit you with those counter attacks, you don't realize it until the ball's gone into the net. Like that's the
Yeah.
kind of fluidity they are having, and which is amazing because they look to be on point. In this whole World Cup, they are making a point to say that, to shrug off their 2019 form. If you remember 2011, 2015, they are the finalists.
Yeah.
2019, they slacked off. And this is a World Cup I think they will still go through because I don't see anybody who is answering that question of how to defeat Japan. Okay, none of the teams look to be on point with, and I'm talking about they're a quiet team. There is not much talked about Japan. There are not commotions or there are no issues. And they look to be like they have studied all of the oppositions, come here like practiced, and they are exploding. The goals are coming, and I won't be surprised if already they have the Miyazawa is 5 goals, I think, right now today. So she'll be
Yeah.
the top scorer for as of now. So they have the goals, they have a real strong defense, and World Cups typically get decided by teams who have strong defenses. Okay, just a thumb rule, not don't take me on the word for it, but people who defend well are normally become the champions. It's like very rare that you have a defensive leaky team going on to win a World Cup. So I think they are a complete unit. They are ready. And the first goal they conceded was today, and that took some spectacular skills from Rayton and Hansen to get that ball through. It was a spectacular goal against a well-drilled defense. So I think they are ready. I mean, I'm just seeing that they have all European opposition coming up right away up till the final. So it will be
Yeah.
like they will be knocking out European teams. Most likely, you will see the Netherlands coming up if everything goes well. So they have a line of European opposition coming up, and it's a pleasure to watch them.
Rightly said. And Japan are the, like you mentioned, nobody's been talking about them. They are the dark horses of the tournament, even though they've been, two-time finalists. But that 2019 performance, people, because of that particular reason, people have, uh,
Yep.
not been talking much about them. But we know what a force they can be. So moving on to Group D,
At
England.
one,
Then, yeah,
maybe
Roshan.
maybe one thing to add. Maybe the Asian Cup where they got knocked out by China was also some extra motivation.
Oh yes,
That they want to deliver a bit this World Cup and they're more ambitious. That can also add some fuel.
definitely.
Yeah. One more point is we need to also appreciate um, pairing these two, Zambia and I think Costa Rica, right? Zambia had a good outing before they entered the World Cup because they defeated Germany 3-2 in a friendly. Everybody was looking up to them. But they didn't meet the expectation. But this is another club which is having a lot of issues with their coach, with the allegations against their coach and everything. So, but it was good to see Barbara Banda score the 1,000th goal in this World Cup. Okay, so now she becomes one legend who from Zambia who has scored the 1,000 goal in the Women's World Cup. So, they have also added their little flavor to it. So, it's good to see that.
In fact, I was really impressed with Zambia at the Tokyo Olympics. You know. they did concede 10 goals in their three games, but they also scored quite a few, and they are an attacking team. And I really hope, even though Nigeria's been the big horse in the African Cup of Nations, I really hope to see a rivalry building there, and Zambia maybe winning a few AFCON Cups in the future as well, which would be great for the women's sport.
Yeah, we should all be looking at sub-Saharan African football because Tanzania is going to
Definitely.
come up for sure. See, that's a complete discussion now how African football has picked up this World Cup
Yeah,
again. Okay, so we need to watch that because African football is trying to prove some points over here.
definitely. And so moving on to Group D, I mean, England, Denmark, China, and Haiti. Haiti, of course, the debutants, a team that qualified through very difficult conditions. I mean, they had a civil war in their country. There was a lot of the players are staying overseas, but what a story for them as well. Even though they, finished last in the group, it was quite expected that the European champions England are going to finish first, even with the injuries that they've had with the captain. Leah Williamson being out, their Euro Golden Boot, Beth Mead also being out, but England didn't have a tough. England did have a tough time, in fact, against Haiti in that opening game, and I was really happy to see a team like Haiti, on debut, giving a European champion such a difficult task. What do you think about it, Shaggy?
See, the player that I wanted to watch was Melchi Delmonte, okay, because she comes with a lot of critic, and she's another team which who actually, unfortunately, didn't light up this World Cup with the talent that she has. Um, so I think England started late. The way it is, the first group games are always cagey with good teams because they don't want to lose those matches. They want to win it at every cost, no matter how bad it looks. That's the normal thumb rule for get your first match win so that your group stage becomes easy. So I think the first match England gave, in my opinion, too much respect to them. I don't recollect the exact nature, but then Lauren James didn't explode in that match, right? So
Yeah,
Lauren James happened later. And when she exploded, I think there was no looking back. I don't think if Lauren James would have been playing the first match up straightforward, you would have probably had those issues. But definitely, when they went into this World Cup, there were concerns of Leah, there were concerns of Beth, because Beth has helped them get the Euro, right? Because she was the top scorer for them in Euros. And Leah has been a remarkable captain. So, it's always a question like when you lose your top clutch players, how you're going to perform in a World Cup. But they have got a good coach. I mean, I've never doubted her capability. I still feel that, in my opinion, they are still one of the top favorites along with Japan. And I expect because of the placement of the halves that you would have a Japanese versus an English final. But it's all, and they again have a very funny situation where they have to knock out all non-European teams to reach the final. So that's the half right now we have. So it's all uh, good to watch England finally do something like the correct in the world stage, right? And it's what they've carried the form in Euro is coming back to them in the World Cup, which is very good to see, despite their top clutch players missing.
very true, and I can't wait to see what Serena does with that half of the group without the European teams, because she's beaten the European teams at the Euros last
Uh,
year, and now it's time to beat the non-European teams and try and make her way to the bigger crown, which is the World Cup. So moving on to Group E, we had the big game, the Netherlands and USA game, last year's finalists in the group stage, and that was a very good game. In fact, any thoughts on that, Roshan, and that group, and how this US team is maybe not looking as strong as the previous champions sides we've seen?
Yeah, they were a bit struggling. I was watching I couldn't see the Portugal match. I saw it in real life. I mean, Alexi Lalas. I saw the Alexi Lalas. He's giving some interviews after all the matches he had I felt he had like a meltdown after the Portugal match. Like that's the worst team he's ever seen, worst women's team he's ever seen. Um, yeah, I think disappointed. I guess they are very bit disappointed. They are. I mean, the ambitions coming, winning 3 times in a row. The World Cup is the more you get, the more difficult, I guess, to keep the hunger high, probably. And um, but yeah, but as we mentioned it before, Netherlands has played a great match in that against USA. That was for a long period. Netherlands could keep pace with USA, and towards the end, I feel USA wanted to win the match but couldn't get it done. And Portugal was also very brave and very strong. I mean, they had the chance in the last minute that could have been the knockout for USA. So they picked up a good fight. I mean, only Vietnam couldn't have had a chance to USA. Maybe I guess USA will have. I guess they will have another view now on the Sweden match. It's a knockout round, so they will be another. That might be a wake-up call. The Portugal match, so I guess they will show some limbs. I mean, they have still the Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, but there are some guys like what's Sophia Smith and Rodman coming up, and there's some talented girls. So I guess they can make it. Sweden USA is the match I'm very keen to watch in this second round. That I guess that will be a high quality match. Yeah, but I guess yeah, I guess USA was not very convincing to show they can win it a third time. Even though we already talked about it, it's a very tight World Cup. There are no pinball results anymore, so that's very close. It will be difficult for USA. They have to massively increase the performance if they want to win the World Cup.
Yeah, in fact, you mentioned the Sweden USA game, and I'm so glad that it's on a Sunday, which is tomorrow, because I won't have to use my phone below my laptop at my workplace, to catch the game. I can watch it on the big screen at my home, all relaxed this weekend. Anyway, we are all looking forward to that game. Yeah, Shaggy, you
Yeah,
have a point.
yeah. Actually, when I was watching the USA, I never seen such a frustrated USA side up till now. Yeah, they didn't look the USA of 2019, and they don't even look like the USA of 2015. I think this is a team which is, I feel the formation is troublesome for me. Ratko, I don't understand his formation given that against Netherlands. As a matter of fact, Netherlands have improved from their Euro. It was good to see the Netherlands, who were struggling in Euro, to come back to this tournament in such good form, because they were another side which was struggling with formation in the last Euro.
Yeah.
And it seems to have rubbed down to the US now that they're struggling with a formation which can get them goals. Sophie Smith was frustrated, and there seems to be a lack of cohesion between the midfield and the attacking three to actually get the ball inside the box and coordinate to actually get a goal. Okay, as the two oppositions that they came against, Netherlands and Portugal, they were struggling. Literally, Portugal frustrated the life out of US. And if it wasn't for the post, I think we wouldn't have been seeing. We would have probably seen the number one and number two rated teams out of this World Cup in the group stage itself. So I think they were spared a shock, to be honest, with the kind of game that they are bringing onto the table. It would take probably tomorrow 6 a.m. if we will come to know how it's going to turn out against the Netherlands, because the Netherlands have worked it out. I think they have got a formation which is quite, Brooks is very exciting to see. So, I love the formation now that they have. Everybody's contributing. Van Donk is doing great inside her position. The defense is a little bit more sorted out. Jansen is good, and so looks more how to say sorted outside. So I don't expect Netherlands to concede too many goals, but keep on attacking. So they are one of the teams that has withheld a good defensive side as well. But again, as Roshan said, you have to really come against a top side to know how they are out of Egypt. But I think the Netherlands have saved themselves from being facing Sweden. So I think the US have to do the hard job. And another US Sweden affair is how do I say it?
Yeah.
Is something which everybody on the cards has it on the cards because they've been meeting so often. Only time this is a knockout stage and not a group stage.
Very true. In fact, I've been waiting for that game because of a personal affiliation to Magdalena Eriksson, because I'm a Chelsea fan, and even though she's now at Bayern Munich, I'm really hoping for the Swedes to go ahead, because we do have a couple former Chelsea players, and of course Zecira Musovic, the goalkeeper, as well. And
I will send you pictures when I see her playing.
Oh yes, please do. And in fact, Shaggy, you were mentioning about Netherlands, the defense being great, but one player I would like to mention who is in my top three of like player of the tournaments is Jill Rood in midfield. I mean, she's been brilliant for Netherlands. I feel she also scored against US, and with no Vivian Miedema, we're seeing like a real presence of Jill Rood. And so, talking about your player of the tournament, would you put her in your top three? And if at all, not if she's not in your top three, who would you guys put in your top three player of the tournament so far? Roshan?
Um, from a German perspective, I have to say Linda Caicedo, obviously.
Yeah,
Then, yeah, Hinata Miyazawa, definitely. She's one to take. And yeah, from and then
the English are not going to be very happy. You might be missing a name.
I was waiting for that.
Lauren James.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Lauren James. Yeah, yeah, Lauren James. Yeah.
What about you,
I'm,
Shaggy?
I'm a little tired between Lauren and Casado, Linda. Linda I watched in the last year's Women's World Cup in under 17, and
Yeah,
she was good. She was one of the force then. But the way she has now taken the World Cup, unfortunately, her last match against Morocco, which we should talk about more because Morocco has been another one of the things. She didn't perform that well, but obviously, she's it's there to see she has the talent, right? She has the talent to be a great, right? Like just like Lauren has the talent to be a great, right? So these two people I'm putting in that great category. But from the Japanese side, I'm very impressed with Julie Endo, and there are so many clutch players. I always find Julie Endo and not strikers when you come to the second part of the story. Jill Rood is good. I mean, it's difficult to have only a top three right now because
yeah.
so many other players have done well today. If you look at it, the Spanish midfield, I forgot her name.
One
So
One
she
Martin.
Mati was One Mati
Bonmati
was
was
brilliant. Yeah,
super. Like the way she toyed with the defense
yeah,
of Switzerland, which is two exceptional quality goals. So they are like orchestrating the midfield, right? So there is Jill Root has a lot of competition there and how things are
Mm.
going to shape up in the midfield. So right now, though, I still will not say Root, but maybe against once we finish against New or the match against next match, we will probably come to know how good we need to give that time for the players to actually see who's actually performing that well throughout the World Cup.
I mean, the Linda Casado and Lauren James conversations are going to go on. I've got, of course, I mentioned the Chelsea connection with Lauren James, but I had the opportunity to watch Casado live in Goa for the Under
Oh,
17 World Cup, and I became a fan that day. So you can say that I've got a personal affiliation to her as well, because I got to see her live. And oh, she's a brilliant player. And like you mentioned, these two are destined for greatness. And I really hope that we see a lot more of Linda Casado in the European setup. She probably goes to a big club, and then we just uh, see more of her in the UWCL.
Hmm. But I mentioned Linda Caicedo because she had a great match against South Korea, but
Yeah.
pulling out such a goal against
Oh,
a country like Germany, a team like Germany in such a match, in such a tight match, such a goal, that was next level for me, because um, she had an injury, I guess, before the last match and was a bit
yeah.
uh, um, uh, overplayed, I guess, in the last match. But to shine in such a crucial match, in such a tight and high level match as in such an age is, yeah, that's why I mentioned her.
So we've skipped a couple groups, Group F and G. We'll get back to them, but because Shaggy mentioned Morocco and we are talking about Casado, let's move on to Group H first with Colombia, Morocco, Germany, and South Korea. I mean, okay, we've spoken about Germany's exit, we've spoken about Casado, Colombia a bit, but Morocco and those final minute scenes, the video that's going on around everywhere. It was such a delight to watch them. Go through, and those emotions that we saw at after the full time whistle. uh, were you guys also having two screens in front of you at that point of time?
All the time. I was watching both of the matches. Like, okay, I was couldn't decide which one to watch. So I was like, okay, I made up my mind. Like, okay, we have to go with the flow of the game because both the matches, the um, Germany versus South Korea versus Morocco versus Colombia, and we shouldn't forget about South Korea because what they did was again another
Yeah,
tremendous defensive job, especially man, how they marked out it looks everything wrong with German football when they did what they did, but it was one hell of a defensive duties that those two centre backs put in. I mean, that was one great. That's what I had to watch them because it was so close. But Morocco has been something again. I think they are just trying to prove a point that they are also a force in Morocco. Along with the men's team, it's just becoming like a history being repeated, and nobody would have thought that they would have got a group to a next stage in a group like which has Colombia, Germany, and South Korea. I mean, frankly, nobody. So I think it the first day drubbing that they got in hand of the Germans, right, and how they came back against the South Koreans as well as the Colombians, right? We should say that they had two victories back to back which actually steadied their ship, and it's quite how do you say it's just to prove the point that African football we have to watch a little bit more, given that they are trying to shine now, outshine, rather I should say, outshine the European compatriots in big matches as well. So it's something which is I guess nobody expected that Colombia could be defeated by Morocco because Colombia defeated Germany. So it
yeah,
was like a topsy turvy group altogether. And I think the one of the most fun groups was Group H. I don't think anybody could keep it till the last match to the last seconds. Everybody was watching that group like crazy. I think that itself created a big tidal wave in women's football, wherein it is a typically I would say Group H is what women's football has been about in this World Cup. It's unpredictability. It's you have the German leagues like Wolfsburg has all its players in Germany. Right? It is a Champions League finalist, right? So you have the top players from there playing in European leagues, and that Colombia and even right Morocco, could thrive. Now, of course, Morocco's got whitewashed, but even the South Koreans could put up such a match is something I didn't expect, but I was so surprised. That's why I'm saying the gaps, quality wise, the gap. What do you say then? There is a quality gap. Why do we say there is a quality gap? There is none because I
Hmm.
feel there is a statement in Group H which we should all be looking at in a high bird's eye view perspective that this group tells you what exactly right now is happening in women's football.
Especially Morocco getting out of the group after getting defeated 6-0 in the
yeah.
first match. After that match,
And
that
this is their
is.
first World Cup.
Mm,
Oh yes, another debutant
Another
making
debutant
waves.
creating those kind of shock waves, which is against a well-established. squads and everything. But that's something which is, as Roshan said, right? Like that we'll have to look at that rubbing has how do people have bounced back from such a heavy defeat, right? That's something talks a lot about the mentality that's being worked out.
So true. And in fact, Roshan mentioned the 6-0 loss they had against Germany. You had a team which conceded six, won the next two games, and then qualified for the next round. But moving to Group F, you had another
But
team
one
which
thing,
faced,
but they
yeah,
made everything actually right, no? Because you can lose one match high, but it's just one match, and if you keep focused on this other two matches, you can make it. So
yeah,
that's why.
so true. I mean, Argentina in the men's side did that when they lost to
Mm,
Saudi Arabia. Uh,
yeah.
they won they won all the games after that. So losing one game doesn't really mark the end of your World Cup. So yeah, so I was talking about Morocco conceding six goals and then winning the next two. But you had one team which faced two big giants in their group without conceding a goal, making it through, which was Jamaica. And they faced France and Brazil with the iconic Marta, who we sadly had to say goodbye to from a World Cup point of view. She's been an icon of the sport, but the goalkeeper, Rebecca Spencer, I mean, wow, she's been making like five saves on an average in the three games, which is quite a big number if you look at it. And wow, that group was simply brilliant. The game France versus Brazil, I was expecting France to do well because of Hervé Renard and his the kind of aura he brings in into any side as a coach. But your thoughts, guys, on this particular group, the shockwave that Jamaica sent out, eliminating Brazil, a powerhouse. What are your thoughts, Shaggy?
See, I think there is the other stories of the other Renard, okay, who headed it in to send Brazil out. Okay, we shouldn't forget that the whole Brazilian setup, the only mistake they did was to actually unmark their French captain Renard, and that was their downfall because I think it was very tight affair. Not many people see that as that, but the way that group was France, Brazil, Jamaica, anything one goal difference has caused an upset over there. But Jamaica have been a story because they are coming to the World Cup is a story in itself, right? So that is a bigger story how they crowdfunded their way into
Yeah,
the World Cup. They didn't concede a goal. They're still undefeated, and it just shows like again like Group H. I mean, Group F is another group which was probably nobody expected that Jamaica would go through, and Jamaica and Morocco have just made like the tidal waves bigger and bigger by getting themselves through to the groups, and you know Jamaica not being defeated, not conceding. I mean, this is legendary stuff, man. The way they have come without a proper, the way they have told the story and they've made a point to their federation that if we had given us resources, probably they would have dropped the group. It's weird. Like, how are these things happening? And, probably once the World Cup settles down, probably everybody will do a rethink on what exactly is a rating system.
I feel like Brazil. I mean, Pia Sundhage. What I know is she was brought in to bring more defensive stability for the Brazilian team. I feel she was too much worried about the defensive stability in my mind. Looking at the France Brazil match, I feel it was decided by the coaches in my opinion because Brazil came back into the match and then Hervé Renard made a substitution, brought Le Sommier out and Bichot in, some fresh person, and Pia Sundhage didn't try to win, didn't go with her substitution, didn't show the initiative to show, okay, we want to win the match. She didn't go with the attacking. She didn't go full all in for the sake of defensive shape, and that was backfiring her at the end, in my opinion. Also, I feel people are now we are sad about Marta, that she couldn't had to leave out at the group stage. She was, as I'm correct, she was not starting in the first two matches, right? She was on the bench. I feel like she should have been come as a substitution. She shouldn't have started against Jamaica, in my opinion, because I felt they were more flexible in the attacking side without her, and she should have tried it in this way. So I feel like she, from the coaching side, I guess she was a bit not taking the full trying the full potential out, in my opinion. But what about Jamaica? That's really I can only add what can only approve what Shaggy said. That's really, I mean, the Brazil match. Alison Swappy, I felt she was more dangerous with her mistakes than some Brazilian attackers, in my opinion. And that's she will go into the history books with the goal against Panama.
Another history maker is another African nation in Group G, the third African nation, in fact, in the round of 16, which is South Africa. Uh, I've been following Italian football for a while because, of the rise of Roma in the Champions League, Juventus in the Champions League. Juventus, of course, facing Chelsea a couple times, knocking us out a couple years ago from the Champions League. That was one of the reasons I was following Italian football. And to see a country like South Africa come in and knock out I mean, on the women's side, you won't really call Italy a powerhouse, but they are up there with one of the best teams in the world. But to see South Africa knock them out was again a shock from my end. I knew Sweden were favorites coming in. They've, in my opinion, probably the most balanced side in the tournament. If you look at all the like goalkeeping, defense, midfield, and attack, if you break it down, I feel like they're the most balanced. But what did you guys make sense of Group G and how South Africa knocking not one but two powerhouses, which was Argentina and Italy, of the World Cup?
Argentina, yeah, Sweden. I agree with Sweden. For me, also Sweden is still one of the favorites, in my opinion, to win the World Cup because yes, they had a tough time against South Africa, but afterwards, I guess Italy was a walkthrough, and Argentina match was then was just to give time to the second squad, to the bench players. South Africa has, in my opinion, in all three matches, proven that they deserve to be in the second round. The Argentina match was I mean, even the Sweden match was unfortunate with that own goal. Then getting two goals against Argentina in a short span of time is also a bit unfortunate. That Argentina is on spot, and yeah, that the final match tweeted also about it. That has everything, every plot twist you want to get. I thought Italy is the way I thought Italy is performing like Morocco was performing. They're getting thrashed by Sweden, but they get the points against Argentina and then against South Africa. And actually, they were also on a good pathway against South Africa. Then this own goal by Orsi somehow, I guess, was completely taking them off. Then Magaya stood up in the second half with the goal, with this beautiful goal, and they could have even made the third goal, South Africa, and then Italy came back. I guess Italy has shot themselves in the foot with the defensive lack of coordination in the defensive part. I guess that was their own thing which they have to analyze. That is, if they would have been defensive stable in the last match against South Africa, then could have gone it through. But yeah, on the other side, South Africa has done everything. They have tried everything until the last minute to get the win. So that's why they deserved to get.
Yeah, just to say, I was looking at the South Africa Argentina match, okay, and that time, and South Africa threw a two-goal lead, okay, to Argentina. So I was watching Ellis, the coach Ellis, comment on. She was so exasperated, frustrated by seeing how their defense was. The only, I think, in this group, bearing Sweden, all of the defenses were pretty shaky, and they are still shaky. Okay, I don't think South Africa have got it, but the attacking front was amazing because the Kakwa, this captain, and I forget the name of the other goal scorer. They were somehow they were able to sync it up properly to get those three goals in time to what was probably another one of the best matches that you can see in this Women's World Cup. Between the Argentina, Italy, and South Africa, I don't think they were different from each other in the senses all of the teams were good in the attacking front, but they lacked the defensive side of things. If they had been probably more defensively resolute, then probably they wouldn't have suffered so much. But I mean, credit to South Africa because they have another African nation who had to prove a point. I think they still have issues with their federation. They came in on a very different thing, but they are a very good attacking side. I still have a little concerns about their defensive unit, but they are still a very good attacking side. They can be one threat, from the attacking front.
When we had it about stories, I mean, the story from Desiree Ellis is also very
Yeah,
inspiring and interesting. Playing football with boys because there was no women's club, losing her job, or losing a job because she came late from a national team match, playing South Africa, coming late to the job and losing the job, and getting an medal of honor from the president, and getting this job, they won the WAFCON last year, and this year this thing that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I really hope we are going to be seeing such inspiring stories going forward on the women's game. In fact, all of the stories are inspiring, but we are waiting for more because the round of 16 has already begun today. We've had two games, which was the Norway versus Japan game. Japan going through 2-1. Spain versus Switzerland. Spain thrashing Switzerland 5-1 after Spain conceding an own goal. So you could say they scored 6 goals. And but moving on to the other fixtures, I just want to get quick uh, predictions from you two. Netherlands versus South Africa. I'm going with Netherlands with a 3-0 win. What about you, Roshan?
I say 2-1.
2-1. Shaggy?
Netherlands. Yeah.
yeah. I think this one will be very interesting, but I still think it will be 3-1. I think our South Africa still have a hope to score a goal, but I don't think they have the defense, and I think Netherlands will do well 3-1.
Okay, so both Shaggy and Roshan going with a goal to South Africa. I mean, they have been scoring well freely. So, but sadly, Netherlands get the vote from all three of us. The next game, the big one tomorrow, which I know everyone's going to stay awake for, which is the Sweden versus USA one. Again, I did mention my personal affiliation, so I'm going with the Sweden 2-1 win. Shaggy, what about you?
I think this will, for me, it's a little, how do US people do when they are pushed to the wall? That's where I want to see what happens to this team. But I still favor the Swedish, but I will go with probably this will be more closer. I think it will be 3-2 to Sweden.
I guess it will be a penalty shootout, but I guess it
That's
will be
my
Sweden.
guess.
I would love that. I would love that. Because I really love watching penalty shootouts and knockout competitions. And a Sweden USA penalty shootout is, I think, something all of us have been waiting for. Because Shaggy mentioned they've been facing each other in the group stages so much that all of us are, waiting for them to have a knockout game like this. Oh, looks like we've lost Shaggy for a while. Let's hope his connection's back up quick. But moving on to the next round of 16 game, England, Nigeria. Roshan, what's your prediction going to be?
I guess it will be 3-1 for England. I guess
Three.
This last match against China was, I guess, the I guess it was giving the relief for England that they're in the mood now to deliver.
I think I'm going with England too because Lauren James, the Chelsea connection, and I'm going to go with a 3-1 win as well. So let's see what Serena has in plan to take on the world and not just Europe this time. Uh, Australia versus Denmark proves to be another good fixture. We are hopeful that Sam Kerr can play this one. Finally, in front of her, a World Cup in front of her home crowd. So, because of that reason, I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for the Aussies, the Matildas. What about you, Roshan?
I guess it will be 1-0. Then for Australia,
A
then
clean sheet.
Denmark is. I guess Denmark is. Yeah, Denmark is strong, but I don't think they will get 2 goals.
And then comes the two teams with great stories, Colombia and Jamaica. Do you think Jamaica are going to concede a goal this time?
Normally, you should say Colombia has beaten Germany, so they might beat Jamaica. Um, mm, yeah, I guess Colombia beats Jamaica 2-1. I guess.
Oh, I'm going to go with a penalty shootout and give Jamaica their clean sheet, a nil-all game, and then maybe Jamaica edge it out in the penalty
Okay.
shootouts. Okay, we've got Shaggy back. Shaggy, we were just discussing the Colombia and Jamaica fixture, and I was saying that I want Jamaica to keep their clean sheet for the tournament. So the game goes into the shootout, and I predicting Colombia to win there. What are your thoughts on that game?
I'm a neutral for that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
don't
we
want
can,
to
we
say
can.
anything over there. Yeah, I'm sorry. My mic might go off. Sorry, my camera might go off, but I don't want to really say anything on that. I think both deserve to be in the next thing. It's unfortunate if any of them lose with what the kind of World Cup they have. So for me, it's neutral. I mean, I just have no issues. It just needs to be a good game, good clean game.
Alrighty then. Shaggy is playing it safe for this particular fixture and moving to the last round of 16 game, which is France versus Morocco. Uh, I'm going to go with France, even though Morocco have had the story of the tournament, you could say arguably, but I just feel like Hervé Renard and Wendy Renard have something in contention for us, especially. I think they are on a vengeance path after losing to USA in the last World Cup at home. I feel like they are a lot more prepared this time around, and they are going to go through with a 2-0 win in this game. Do you guys agree
Hmm,
with me?
France. I guess it will be a 3-0 for France.
All
I
right.
would even
And
say
Shaggy?
3-0.
I feel this is going to be a 0-1 for Morocco. They are. It's always dangerous to underestimate Morocco. I feel this World Cup we should not underestimate Morocco. They have been a solid defensive unit after that 6-0 defeat. I don't see them conceding. Okay. Maybe as there is bouts of luck for each team. They can run as long as the good runs. But they, I don't think, will concede much. They have worked out the defense really well, and that's what I was watching. That the way they are defending now is gonna be something which we should watch. They have the physical stamina to defend a whole match. Okay, and that was something amazing I was watching. So I think there would be a side which would set up defensively, frustrating the French. Okay, that's one thing I want to watch how an attacking and such a counter-attacking football gets played over here. So for me, I still would favor a Morocco 0-1.
And I think, for anyone who loves a David Goliath story and loves to cheer for the underdogs, I think most of the world does. So it's the best way we should end this podcast with Shaggy's bold prediction of Morocco beating France 1-0. Uh, Tomorrow we've got two really great games, Netherlands and South Africa, Sweden and USA. So don't forget to tune in. on fan code and Star Sports in India. And Roshan, if for your German fans, where do you watch the game? You can just share a quick update.
I watch it here since the first match is at 4 a.m. in the morning. I will watch it here. I'll sneak out of the bedroom that my wife is not uh, annoyed too much. So I'll watch it in my work room and yeah.
So good luck with that. Set your alarm for
Thank you.
4 a.m. And
Thank
all
you.
Indians, do wake up early because we've got some great football coming up tomorrow and in the next fortnight as well. That's it from the Sports Khabri podcast, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.